This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.
Welcome everybody to the July Commission on Disability meeting. We're just gonna go down the agenda. So who are we missing? Louise. She said she was gonna be here, so we got Bryce, we got Jeff. Nancy is still not here. I don't know if Nancy has taken herself off or what exactly is going on with that. Are we missing anybody else either? No. Oh, speak. Oh. There we go. Perfect. Hi. Welcome.
First time. It's been perfect that I've been late anywhere.
That's all right. No, we're not missing anybody else. And then we don't have anybody here for public speak. Let's see. So the speaker is not coming. We were having somebody come to talk about the Autism Blue Envelope program. And they're not going to make it this month. So try to have them next month. And I just want to go around the meeting and we'll introduce ourselves since we have members that are newer. So I am Angelique Baker. I'm the chair.
Dylan Maxfield, I'm the associate planner for the city of Easthampton.
I'm Leslie Kane. I have applied to be a member of the board.
Ali Gonzalez, I'm just here as a guest visitor. Bruce Homestead.
Louise Jacob. I'm pretty new.
And I'm Eli Damon, I'm the vice chair.
Go ahead.
I'm Stan Diamond, member of the commission.
My name is David.
My name is Bryce.
My name is Jeff Brown from Riverside Industries. Bryce LaPlante and I are voting members on the committee.
I'm Bob.
I'm Kara from Riverside.
Great. So thank you, everyone. So we were also supposed to have another speaker named Meg, who was going to update us on the accessible trails. Did you want to, I mean, you were asking if she's here. Do you want to do a little update? Great, go ahead, Bruce.
Okay. Couple things is the things in committee, and it has to be passed out of committee and acted on before they leave in August for their vacation, whatever. If it doesn't come out and get worked on, then it's dead. They start all over.
You can talk a little bit louder so we can hear you.
So, so the thing that Meg is trying to push now is to have us contact our local representatives and anybody else that we know that might be able to make some noise about this, like somebody in the meeting last month said about handicapped or physically challenged athletes, because there's really a lot. If anybody knows anybody that is a physically challenged athlete, have them speak up for the benefits of the trails. And the math on the lack of trails in Massachusetts is huge. So we have maybe about 7 miles through the whole state of adequate accessible trails.
7 miles.
7, yeah. And Berkshire County has 50%, more than 50% of their people could be challenged people that could be using accessible trails. And so the math is huge. So throughout the whole state, there's about 37% of the people that would benefit by accessible trails. So obviously money is an issue because it's taxpayer money and grants and things like that that's going to pay for some of this. I live on East Street. One house down from me is the Kestrel Trail. that the town and Kestrel, worked on. And just to make that trail so that it was accessible was, $500,000 to create that trail and do the landscaping and stuff like that. So it's not inexpensive to do these projects.
That tiny little loop.
Yeah, it goes up to the, utility road there for the
Yeah.
high tension wires. And then from there you can go through the whole Mount Tom Trail system.
Right.
So it's huge.
Can you guys hear everything at home?
So anyway, that's the impetus. Now, Meg is is from the, Unpaved Trails for All is the name of the bill. And she has information and, that's available with resources and stuff like that that we can use. There's one page, talk sheet on the whole thing that's good for a handout or to email people or things like that. So that's about it.
She wanted a signature by today or phone call by today, right?
Yeah.
The state representative.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, today's a big day for action, so call your state representatives and anybody else that you might know. And make some noise on social media.
And that was sent to everybody in email. So if you're interested and can't find it, I'll send it again.
So that's about it.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions about that? Dan, go ahead.
I would just like to let everyone know that this week, Easthampton received a grant of $300,000 to update and make accessible the Manhattan Rail Trail. Barb LaBombard in the city clerk's office is heading up the committee that is going to implement that grant, but it's specific. The grant language specifically talks about improving handicap access for the trail, and that covers the entire trail, and it's just one grant for everything. So part of it will be used to repair the pavement and make it safe so that people don't trip or fall off. And part of it will be used to implement additional handicap features. And I mean, one of those could be benches at various intervals along the trail where somebody needs to sit down and rest while they're exercising. I mean, that might be one possibility. Handrails in areas that may be steep or graded too steeply to help people move along safely. Various things that we can talk about and come up with as a group. But I just wanted to add that into the trails information. Thank you.
I was gonna call on you.
Okay. I can also talk about the blue envelope thing if you want, since our
Sure, take it away, Stan.
Okay, so the Blue Envelope program is something that was created by our governor originally in Boston, and it's administered by the state police in Massachusetts, as well as local police departments, which is why our local commissioner, police commissioner, was coming to talk with us. Anyone who has autism or similar kind of handicap can apply for a blue envelope through the state police, or can walk into our city police department and pick up a blue envelope. To check it out, I wrote to the state police and requested a blue envelope, and a few days later it showed up in my mail. So it works. The blue envelope is an envelope to keep in your car, and it tells you what you should keep in it. And if you're ever stopped by a police officer while you're driving, The object is you have all the information that the police officer needs in that blue envelope. So you reach into your glove box, hand the blue envelope to the police officer, and he has all the information without asking you questions, without causing any kind of anxiety on your part. And he has access to your driver's license, your insurance information, your registration, etc., which you keep in the blue envelope in your glove compartment. That's basically the process. Anyone who needs one can simply write to the state police barracks. There's one up in Northampton, just above the co-op, the Northampton site of the co-op, or they can call our local police department and request an envelope from them, or simply probably walk in and pick up an envelope. So that's what the blue envelope program is all about.
That sounds useful, but I've got a question. Is this only for drivers?
Do you mean for bike riders as well?
No, I mean for people.
Just like walking around.
I would imagine it would work. Well, I mean, it wouldn't have the same information for bike riders, and I don't know how often bike riders are pulled over by police cars.
I would say there's been a lot of interactions with wellness checks and police calls to a place where somebody's having a meltdown and they're not a driver.
Right.
And I was just trying to figure out
It-
if
it-
they're relative to anybody.
This particular program is to give your information to the police officer who pulls you over for a traffic infraction or supposed traffic infraction. And that's what the program was set up to do, to help autistic people deal with police that pull them over for traffic issues. It's not intended to be used by other wellness people.
That's a good question, Louise. So can you hang on to that question? So we get the police here because that is very true. It's very true. Like, can they carry anything if they're walking around and yeah.
And if our police commissioner comes to the next meeting, we can ask him that question as well.
Perfect. Thank you, Stan, for this.
Quite welcome.
Hi, Jeff.
Well, I was just to Louise's point, I don't think there's anything stopping anyone from like carrying a blue envelope around in their pocket for like a pedestrian stop or something like that. I mean, it would probably still function. My pockets aren't necessarily the size of a glove compartment, so it might not be as practical, but I don't think it would I don't think the cop would look at it and think it was invalid or anything, you know? But I mean, that's the other major, I don't think they pull over bikers, but I think, stop frisks on the street or street corner are probably the other major time when police might have an adverse interaction.
That's what we have here for, Jeff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was just going to add, family members could hold.
Well, a family member could be like, hey, my son's autistic, and that would probably might help, maybe it wouldn't, maybe that would be helpful for the family member to hand to the police officer as well. But I think it's probably the biggest protection needed is for solitary drivers, because that would be,
Does Dave want to say something?
Yeah, I'm trying to, I mean, I don't understand what it means, the blue thing. I don't understand what that means.
I can explain it afterwards if you
Well,
want.
Okay.
Dave, we're gonna talk about it next month too, but it's just
Sure.
colored.
It's simply the color of the envelope that they send you, your documentation into.
Yeah.
It'll
I
let
can.
you have a diagnosis. All right, perfect. Thank you. Is there anything you wanted to say about the zoning board of appeals or anything else?
Nothing new, same stuff as before. We still have openings on there. If people want to apply. Zoning Board of Appeals still looking for members. So we got a new member appointed recently, but still have 2 openings. So if, Commissioner, go
What
ahead.
qualities are you looking for?
Ability to show up to the meetings regularly is a big one.
Perfect.
And just, the ability to just understand zoning and kind of understand the scope of what you're doing. Anyone can really do it. It's not terribly complicated. The big requirement of zoning board of appeals is you just have to live in the town where that zoning board is. Kind of a big thing. The idea of these types of boards is generally a sense of reasonableness.
Mhm.
What's somebody proposing? Does it make sense? Does it fit in with the neighborhood? That's really kind of a question that the ZBA is asking for. I should say asterisk on doesn't fit in with the neighborhood. It's really doesn't fit in with zoning.
Right.
And you're the ones who have to make that call. Again, it's nothing horribly complicated. The zoning ordinance will say, if you meet these standards, you can qualify. They have to then come make the case to you that we do meet these standards, where if this far set back, it matches the general neighborhood, it matches these general standards. They apply to you, and then if you agree, vote in favor of it. If not, or perhaps you might have, and this is kind of a big role that happens in ZBA a lot of the time, is you kind of work as an arbiter, referee, I should say, rather than throwing out the official legal terms, the kind of like a referee between applicants and neighbors, typically on larger scale projects. For example, Pasty Top, that was something that went before the planning board. ZBA deals with similar things, typically of a smaller scale. And usually you're addressing specific concerns. An example I will always like to use is somebody's building a type of structure that requires a special permit. There's a neighbor who's concerned about that structure. They can see right into their bedroom window, right? ZBA might say, well, you can do it, but you got to build screening here. Where if you have a single family home, something like that, something that's by right, there's not a public process. You have the land, you want to put a single family home there, you come in, you do it. Hey, it looks right into my window. I don't have to tell you, I'm allowed to do it, and I don't want to build screening. When you have this public input process, it creates an avenue for people to say, typically for these larger impact types of structures and projects, it just gives residents, typically abutters in that area, people who are going to be directly affected by these types of projects, an outlet to come, say what their concerns are. DBA usually tries to address these concerns as best they can.
2 questions. How many openings?
There are 2 openings.
Okay. And then, so I live somewhere and they put a massage shop and they didn't follow the law, and somehow Easthampton messed up. But like, one of the reasons I didn't know there was a meeting is because I was a renter. So like, we didn't know. So it goes to the owner, and he was the owner of the building and the owner of the massage shop. So kind of get around that because I never knew there was a meeting. So how can renters find out about the meetings?
So right now, this is, I live in Amherst and I'm a renter myself, and I same problem. My road was being just torn up, and I had no idea that that was even happening.
Yeah.
So it's definitely an issue, and this is just has to do with how we're required to notify, and we're required to notify property owners, not who's actually at the property, but who actually owns that property.
Right.
Is what the requirement is.
That's state,
That's the state requirements.
so there's nothing, like you have to post notices and all.
Correct. So yeah, the notices will always be posted in the paper. We post to the Gazette. So if you look in the Gazette, their legal ad section, you can see
Yeah.
all the surrounding towns, any type
It's
of
my
special
nighttime
permit.
reading. Right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It will also be posted to, you can always look at the Easthampton's website, just the planning board or zoning board of appeals agenda. The planning board meets twice a month. The zoning board of appeal typically meets once a month right now, and that's ZBA is the one that we're looking for applicants. Right now, we're meeting twice a month because we're handling a, it's called a comprehensive permit. This is a type of large scale affordable housing project. This is a state mandated process that essentially allows developers to essentially seek relief from local zoning ordinances in order to build affordable housing. So we're currently navigating one of those. The hearing, we're actually restarting the hearing. It's going to start on the 31st of this month. So anyone who would be appointed wouldn't be serving for this comprehensive permit, but we'd be doing our regular meetings. It's the last Wednesday, or the fourth Wednesday, I should say, of every
They are.
month.
Sorry, just, what time? In other words, can you have a day job and do it, or is this for
6 p.m.
evenings? Yeah.
Yep, 6 p.m. And they go from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. Yeah. And there's, a lot of reading ahead of time where some of
I was
it's
just gonna ask that, the in-between stuff.
kind of dense. You don't have to worry too much about it because they will send, engineering plans, right? And, you'll sometimes get like an 80-page document. Nobody's expecting a volunteer to read an 80-page document of engineering schematics. Typically, what happens is we get those, the city gets those as part of its application, and our city engineer is the one who reviews the 80-page document. As a member, you're looking to review the email of, did the city engineer look at it and sign off on that? And that's typically more so what you folks are doing. You have it, you're free to read through them, but when I get the engineering documents, I'll look through them, but I'm looking more so at it, how it fits into zoning as opposed to, is this sound engineering? I'm not qualified to answer that question, so we certainly don't expect that of volunteers either. But you will have all that material. Typically, the big thing you're looking at is with any application that comes in, we ask what's called a project narrative. That just means there's zoning, the ordinance, there's what the applicant is trying to do, and then it's just their job to explain that to the board members. Hey, this is what the ordinance says. This is what we're doing. This is how it fits in, right? So that way, typically when they come to you, it's very easy to say, all right, yes, yes, yes. And then maybe you'll have specific concerns that you can then raise at the meeting. You can ask, hey, I'm not sure about this, this, and this. But typically, I don't want to say typically, because every application is unique, but it's certainly not uncommon that you have things that come to you that are very uncontroversial. They're saying, I'm looking to do this, this, and this. No neighbor showed up to say we don't like it. It fits into zoning, and it really kind of gets approved without a whole lot of questions. That's also not uncommon. It's not uncommon that you have ones that are very contentious, that bring out neighbors that do not want these projects to happen, and you kind of have, that's a big one. That was planning board. Planning board gets a lot more of the you're really in the weeds working with the applicant and the residents, the ZBA. Sometimes you get it, but it's much more for the most part, usually simpler stuff that ZBA gets. So if anyone's interested, there's the form you fill out. It's online. It all goes through the mayor and through the chair. I'm just the administrator. I'm not the one who makes any of the calls who gets on the board, but part of what I do is encourages people to apply. And yeah, I did ZBA for the town of Amherst for about 3 years. It's interesting work. I found it rewarding. The big thing I was concerned about was affordable housing, and it was an avenue I was able to get involved in to be able to actually work on affordable housing. So that's something that, if that's something you're concerned with, a good way to get involved with that is with the Zoning Board of Appeals. For the most part, a lot of what the Zoning Board of Appeals deals with, though, is usually smaller scale special permits. Again, a special permit, things you're allowed to do by right. As long as you meet all the building code, nobody can stop you from doing it. Things you're not allowed to do, doesn't matter how much you want, you cannot build a nuclear power plant in Easthampton. Not allowed in any zones. But then there's this special avenue, special permit. You're allowed to do it, but you have to have a public body vote on it. That's either the Zoning Board of Appeals or the Planning Board, who is that public body. So that's typically what you deal with on Zoning Board of Appeals. So if you're interested, go ahead and apply. If you'd like, you can email me. I can send you just directly to the link of where you apply to, and you can go from there.
All right, thank you. Do you guys have any questions? Dan?
I just wanted to mention that Is one of the projects for affordable housing the one that's in the big open plot south of Bullinger's on Route 10?
Yes, on 385 Main Street. Yep, that's the one that
Right.
we're going to be hearing on July 31st.
Okay, there is a new organization in town, unofficial organization, a Facebook organization called Easthampton Active Citizens. They are very big on saying no and not very big on understanding why it's needed. They are adamantly opposed to anything that's going to, according to them, change the nature of Easthampton and become and turn it into a metropolitan area because of all the new housing that's coming in. So I just wanted to give you a heads up to watch out for membership applications from that particular group. That's all.
Yep. I will say this too with something on ZBA, because I do know the group you're referring to. They typically come to meetings and speak, and folks in that group, I will say, they're very respectful, and usually their concerns are specific, which is something I always appreciate. One of the things when it comes to, and I should say this for just kind of anyone interested in how this stuff kind of operates, planning board, zoning board of appeals, it really ends up being kind of a referee body. If you have people on totally opposing sides of, not necessarily the political spectrum, but of just kind of the development spectrum, you can have somebody who's totally anti-zoning or anti-development, wants nothing new, say no to everything. And you can have somebody on the totally opposite side saying, I hate the red tape, let's clear the red tape out of the way. Typically with these boards, you should be seeing these people voting the same way, because when you're actually on these boards, that's not where you're making the call of whether you want to cut the red tape or whether you want to say no to projects. Because on these boards, your job is to look at, what does the ordinance say? What does the application before me say? And that's kind of the criteria of where you're making that judgment. And again, we recently had a member who has departed who was opposed to red tape, didn't think we should have to put these people through, the quote unquote ringer that you got to go through sometimes on the ZBA. And it's a fair point to make. But the ZBA isn't the place where you make that call. That's city council. City council gets elected. They make the ordinances. We're the ones who carry it out. Something that's very useful for anyone who maybe is thinking about doing city council at some point in the future. Serving on ZBA gives you that insight of, all right, well, when I make an ordinance, what actually happens to the ordinance when, rubber meets the road? How does this actually impact people? And you can really get that sense of, is this benefiting the community? Are we better off for it? Is this needless red tape? Is it too easy for developers to circumvent? And it kind of gives you an idea of what actually happens when you implement these bylaws. So it's a good area to actually see how that works. But typically ZBA, and this is something that we often see from members of the public. This is not something I knew before I'd gotten involved, but typically when something is coming before the zoning board of appeals or before the planning board, in a lot of facets, these things have already been decided before it's gotten to them. A lot of times when something's coming, it's less of, is it yes or no? It's more of a, well, you met all the criteria you were supposed to. It's a yes, and how? And I'll give you an example here for those interested. So right now, what we're looking at with this comprehensive permit application, this is that one on 385 Main Street. What that is, like I said, it's called a comprehensive permit, also referred to as a 40B. This is referring to Mass General Law, Section 40B. What this is it is a mechanism that the state has put out, which allows developers to create affordable housing without having to go through a lot of the red tape of, the patchwork of local zoning ordinances throughout the state. So one of the things that is in this mechanism is if a municipality has less than 10% of its total housing stock considered affordable, that's determined by the state. If you're below that, you lack what is called safe harbor. If you have safe harbor and you get a special permit application or a comprehensive permit application, you can say no. If you're below that threshold, you're below 10% of affordable housing, which Easthampton is, and you deny a comprehensive permit, an applicant can appeal that decision. They appeal it to a special body called the Housing Appeals Committee, and overwhelmingly, a Housing Appeals Committee will overturn a denial if a municipality is below that 10%. So Easthampton, we're at about 7.8% right now for affordable housing stock. So comprehensive permit, we can say no. We're allowed to say no. The board members are not compelled to vote yes, but they also have to face the reality that if they vote no, their decision will be appealed, and it will very, very likely be overturned. Moreover, we are dealing with what's called a friendly 40B. This is where our elected politicians, in this case, our mayor and city council, have solicited developers to come in here and apply for a 40B process, right? There's what's called a hostile 40B. This is when a big developer wants to build some large scale development and they don't want to deal with local zoning. Well, if they create a certain number of affordable housing, now the municipality can't say no. And there's what's called a friendly 40B. This is where typically we're inviting a nonprofit developer. In this case, we're inviting the community builders is the name of the developer. They specialize in developing affordable housing. 100% of the housing that's being proposed at 385 Main Street will be affordable. So they come in, they propose this, and a similar situation had happened in Hadley. Again, their select board and their town administrator invited, I believe it was Valley CDC, to come develop the Econo Lodge. It went before the Zoning Board of Appeals, and they were at safe harbor. They crossed that threshold. They were able to deny it and not have to worry about that appeal. But what ended up happening there is their Zoning Board of Appeals denied that application. The applicant appealed it, and because the town administrator and the select board had invited these people to apply, they opted not to contest the appeal. So then the developer was able to, even though they had gotten a no vote from the Zoning Board of Appeals, they got it overturned in an appeal. And effectively what had happened as a result of this, the Zoning Board of Appeals, part of what its job is navigating this process, hearing from the public. They, again, specific concerns, addressable concerns that they might have, they can now implement that into a project. If they don't do it in that hearing process, if it goes to appeal and it gets overturned, you have what's called constructive approval. This just means, well, now the developer doesn't have to negotiate with the Zoning Board of Appeals. They don't have to go through this public hearing process. They simply can build what they're looking to build without any conditions being put on. So typically, the way that this is working right now is it's much more of a collaborative process because no developer wants to go to an appeal. Even if you're going to get it, it's still a longer and expensive process. And Zoning Board of Appeals does not want a constructive approval. They would much rather like to have a say. And when you can say, well, you can build this screening or we can deny it, and you'll get it on an appeal, which will be more expensive than if you just put in the screening. And there's that kind of general understanding. And it's much more of a negotiation of how are we going to do it as opposed to if we're going to do it. Again, just kind of a reality of the mechanism of how these things work. So that's just kind of a brief overview of one of the things the Zoning Board of Appeals does. It's not always 40Bs. There's a lot more special permit applications, something we have coming on the agenda for us in August. We have another thing called a major home occupation. This is somebody is looking to do, they have a hair salon where they'll have, or a beauty salon, people come to their home, they see clients there, and you can get a permit for this. Typically, these are relatively uncontroversial. A big stipulation is, well, are you having more than 2 cars coming to your home every hour? If not, you can get it. If you're over that threshold, you can't get it. You know, you can't, certain things you can't do. You know, you can't run a convenience store out of your home, right? Doesn't matter how much you can't do it, but certain things where you might see appointments at home, you're allowed to do that. But again, by a special permit, typically for these types of reasons. Of a big reason why, you know, people don't want businesses in residential neighborhoods. You know, we don't want headlights pulling in all hours of the night. What hours are you operating? You have to demonstrate this. You have to put it in there. That way, if your neighbor now sees headlights coming in 10, 11, 12 at night, you know, they come to the city, hey, they're in violation of their special permit. They're not allowed to operate during these hours. So it's kind of, that's something that's going to be coming before us. Again, these things, like I say, are usually uncontroversial, but you never know. That's kind of when an applicant applies and says that, I usually tell them the same thing. Could be simple. If you know your neighbors and your neighbors like what you're doing,
Right.
typically the ZBA isn't the place where an individual member has an issue with a particular application. But we also have one coming for us right now where somebody's looking to build a shed near their property line where another shed exists. Their neighbors don't like it. This is something that the ZBA is going to have to navigate. So you never know. It's a mixed bag of things. It's very interested. If people want to apply, I encourage you to do so. You can come join the fun.
Thank you, Dylan. Okay, so speaking of, let's see, speaking of ordinances, City Councilor Gomez was going to come today and give us an update on the accessibility ordinance, but he couldn't make it, and neither could City Councilor Zaret. So hopefully they'll come next month. That's the ordinance where we're trying to have people have to list all their accessibility options and a contact person when they hold an event or anything of that nature. So, so I got some requests to talk about vacation spots and how accessibility works. And I went to a couple of places and found out how their accessibility options work. Have any of you been to Disney or Universal or Busch Gardens or places like that and had any experience with asking for accessibility options? Jeff, were you gonna say, Jeff Brown? You would have to turn on your, I can't hear. You have to turn on your, have you been anywhere?
No, no.
Okay.
I was just asking my group what their experience was, because
I went there because I had fun there. A lot of people. down
Which
there.
place did you go, Dave?
I went to when I was gift shop fish.
Wait, where? I'm sorry.
The gift shop.
Which amusement park?
When all the rides are.
Disney?
Yep.
Okay, I don't know.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So I'm just gonna go over things real quick because so Six Flags, you have to have a doctor's letter about your whatever illnesses or diagnoses you have, and then you go online to a separate place, submit that, ask for your accommodations, and then someone on the other end approves it, and then you get this little card, and you have to bring the card to Six Flags, and then they'll give you your whatever accommodation. The accommodations that I went after are not the same accommodations that somebody else might go after. So for me, it was standing in line for a long time was difficult, or needing to bring my own food because some of these places don't want you to bring food, right? They want you to buy their expensive gross food. So my doctor was great. Like I was able to tell her exactly what I needed, and then she was like, "Oh yeah, that makes sense." So she wrote the letter. So at Six Flags, I was able to bring in my own food and skip the line, so to speak. They either give you a time in which you come back, they look at the line and they say, "Oh, that's an hour, so you can go do something else and come back in an hour," or they let you write through. And then you feel like it's your birthday. You're like, wow, look at me. Like, Ali's come with me so he can talk on what it's like to witness some of this stuff, because it's not all as easy as you would think it would be. Customer service people don't always know about the people's, meeting people's needs, or they're rude about it, or the people that are running the rides. A lot of times are younger or whatnot. We went to Universal, that was another place that let me skip the line, but I had a bag with me. They said you can bring a medical bag, like your pills or snacks or whatever. And one of the big problems at Universal was that they want you to put your medical bag in a locker. And so you may go up, you may skip the line and go up an accessible elevator, but then where you put your bag is like way back there, up 7 flights of stairs. So it never made any sense to me. Like, I'm going up an elevator because stairs are painful, but to put my bag away, I have to go way down there and up there and down there and up back there and over there. So I feel like there's a little like gap in thinking about how people's needs can get met. And I know that these places are trying to do their best and they're trying to meet all sorts of, accommodations. I know that, let me see, I know that Disney, we also went to Disney. So that was one that does not let you skip the line. That was one that you have to have a smartphone, have to, because you have to download their app that allows you to book a time for the ride and then come back. And so if you don't have a smartphone or your smartphone died, which mine was going to die, like that's pretty scary because you're just like, well, I'm out. Like that's not going to work. I mean, maybe if you have friends with you, you could tag team it and like your smartphone, you use yours for a while and switch over, sign into your account, use theirs for a while. But it was difficult to manage. A lot of these places also, they don't have paper maps. And for me, I'm really good at direction, but I felt like I needed to cross off where I had been. And because of the environment, nobody has paper maps. And so I was literally losing my mind trying to like zoom in and like, where is this place or where isn't this place? And so for me, it really put my stress level up really, really high, trying to, I don't know how to do on the phone. Maybe on the phone, I could put it in some other app and be able to cross things out, but I don't know how to do that. And you would think like with paper straws, right? Like if you want a plastic one, you can ask for it. They don't have them out, but you can ask for it in town or whatever, but it doesn't matter what disability you have. You can't get a paper map no matter what. So I'm like, how is that possible? How is that possible that none of these places have like a few back there for people that really feel like they need it? I was thinking of people with vision issues, like scrolling in on a little smartphone on a map. Like how does that even work? Like I don't have vision issues and it was a lot. And where's the other place? Oh, we went to Busch Gardens and they also had the come back in a certain amount of time thing, like look at the line, it's a half hour, come back in a half hour. A lot of times the people did just let us through. I think they let us through right away because they didn't, I don't know. It's a lot to manage, like writing a time down and somebody comes back and I don't know why they let us through right away, but there were a couple places where the person giving these accommodations was very rude, very nasty. Did you want to say anything about that, Ollie? What it's like to witness somebody?
I think that so the people are not sometimes skilled in like more of the invisible disabilities. So I think that there's some judgment there that if you're in a theme park where you're gonna get around it's hot, lots of people, overwhelming, that you're immediately a willing party to experience that joyfully rather than like some people want to enjoy the park and they have all these other invisible disability that will be challenging regardless, right? So like I don't think that they understand that. So they just want to see someone like on a wheelchair and do the checkbox. And I don't think that they're understand the other thing that people can suffer while waiting in line, that can create for unsafe space for them.
It's
So the advocacy for that I think has to change to educate and then implement something to help those people.
At Universal, that's the, there was a long, I don't know, there was a long enough wait. It was like a 20-minute wait for me to talk to the accessibility person. And it was like 100 degrees. And I really wish there was like a chair. So when I got up there, I was real nice. I just said like, oh, have you guys ever thought about in the future? Like, I wasn't even asking for a chair. Like, in the future, like maybe putting a chair for your accessibility line. And she was super rude. She was like, no, like, we're not going to do that. And then I was like, oh, well, it was hard for me to stand here. And then she was telling me like, if it's so hard for you to stand there, then you should be in a wheelchair. And I was like, what? There's a lot in between, you know. Anyways, that was really hurtful. She was very cranky. That wasn't great. Where else did we go? We went to some place called King's Dominion in Virginia, and I had already been to all these other places and got accessibility passes, different kinds. So I felt like I had a good knowledge. The one thing they're not allowed to do is ask you your diagnosis. And this lady or this young girl straight up was like, what are your illnesses? She asked me some other questions. And then I was like, you can't really ask me that. But then she seemed stressed out and she was young. So I was like, okay, well, I guess I'll tell you some. And I rattled off some. And because she had a family member that had one of them was similar, that's the only one she remembered. So then when she went to go ask for the pass, I got like lower help. It was some accommodation where he could stand in line for me. Like, and I would have to be over here in a separate area. And like, how is that helpful for me to sit for 2 hours? Like, I don't know. And so then when I talked to the manager, she was equally a big meanie pants and was like, well, I was like, you can't ask me that stuff. And she's like, well, you volunteered it. And it was like, not really. And I sort of had to like really push for like, point being is, had I not had experience at other places, I would have just believed whatever they gave me and not known to push any further for something that the one where you can sit and come back later on. So it was really hurtful and embarrassing and infuriating. And sometimes it started my day off really high stress and feeling embarrassed that I didn't look like I have the typical disabilities. It's embarrassing for people in general to ask for help. And then when you ask for help and they judge you or they tell you you're not going to get it. And I do understand that people fake stuff, right? They probably find out about a program and they fake it. And like, I don't know. It was a lot. So have you guys ever been anywhere else any of you, where you had to ask for accommodations that was like supposed to be a fun place? No? Well, if you end up going somewhere, you should, and you need some help, you should ask me and I can go into more detail. I just want to go over it briefly.
I know,
Yeah.
not the same, but they got the airlines is known better.
Yeah.
Abroad. They have, what is it? I think it's sunflower, but it's something that the kids can wear or anybody, which says I've got a disability. And so all the staff know. And it's generally fairly well respected. I mean, my grandson at a younger age, he tended to get invites to the pilot's cabin.
Oh, wow. Look at that.
Now, he's 13 and he doesn't want anybody.
Right now.
Yeah. But there's a certain degree of public awareness around. They see that on, which is the opposite of what you're describing.
Yeah.
But I haven't been to any of those.
Does anybody have any questions about that? No? All right, we'll move on to the last couple of things here. So recruiting new members, we always talk about that every meeting. We have 4 spots open because you applied. There were a bunch of people online that said they were interested. I'm gonna have to continue to follow up with them. And again, it's always the same thing. Like, some people can't make it during the day because they work, but if we had it at night, then you couldn't be here and we need you to even run it. So trying to meet everybody's needs, it's difficult. So if you want to, we have a banner. And sometimes we put out a tent. So if anybody's interested in maybe going to a market or whatever kind of event we have in town and sitting at a table for a little while and talking to the community about what types of folks we need, or let me know and we'll set that up. And then Jeff Brown, you wanted to bring something up during new business time?
Yeah, so I don't know, Eli and I have both talked about accessibility at Mountain View School and how ridiculous it is for people who do not drive to be able to access, events there. And I know both from like talking to like the community, Jean Libby, I don't know if she's still the community person, but she was for a while. And people want a community hub in this new building that's out in the middle of a swamp. I could walk from Riverside to Maple and pick my daughter up and it's a lesser distance than the driveway at Mountain View. But anyway, right now I noticed that they're having the summer meal program out of Mountain View.
Okay.
And it occurred to me that I think this is like a federal anti-poverty measure. Right. They're also inviting people to come and sit and eat and enjoy the community. And that's great. And it occurred to me, what are their plans for people who do not drive to be able to access this?
Okay.
And I think it's just, as we consider using, an expensive, modern space that's a community asset, how are we improving this? And it can't just be, walking paths to the school. It's just, and it would be.
What are you proposing?
It would be great to get Jean Libby. It's probably like 5 more minutes.
Yeah, we'll be over in 5 minutes.
And it would probably be great to get Jean Libby or someone else that's kind of in charge of that space, the outreach in that space. Either Jean or the school committee or someone from the school committee to just speak to that a little bit and express concerns and learn about any future plans they have.
I will contact. I'll reach out to her and I'll report back, or maybe I'll have her come.
You should tell Jeff. I raised similar questions about other groups of people who wouldn't be able to access the lunch program and got nowhere.
Okay.
No plans.
All right.
But anyway, we should.
That's awful. I didn't know they were having it there. I thought but that stinks. I'm sorry. That's awful. All right. I will chat with her and then I'll get her ASAP. Summer's half over. Okay. All right. So we have 2 more things. Future speaker ideas. Is there anybody off the top of your head that you want me to invite to speak?
I'd like to see the people who didn't turn up.
Right. We're getting them in here. And then the last thing is just, again, World Disability Day, which is December 3rd. And I'm hoping that we can do something, although our meetings are once a month. So this day is going to creep up real quick. Jeff Brown, just to go off of the thing you suggested, I did talk to Art in Motion, who had some disabled dance troops like you thought there might be out there, like there is. So I've been speaking to them because I did a little Latin dance lesson for them. So now they're answering my emails a little faster. So they do have some of that. There's something else that you guys would want to have on World Disability Day if we make something. I know we said some different tables. If you can't think of anything now, of course you can email me.
I have some ideas, but I'm actually probably, it sounds like I was getting kicked out of this room, so.
Okay.
I have an idea. Yeah. Whole Children and Milestones has a band called Friendship Band that is made up of people with disabilities.
Whole Children and what was it?
It's called Whole Children and Milestones.
And Milestone. Oh, I didn't know they added that to their name. Okay.
Yep. And they maybe could perform.
That'd be great. Is it children or the parents?
It's mostly adults with disabilities. That's why they changed the name to Whole Children and Milestones, because the adults who were enrolled in Whole Children were like, we're not children.
Right.
So, yeah.
Is there anything else before we adjourn? Oh, we didn't go the minute. So did anybody do that? Good job, Angelique. Did anybody see anything wrong with the minutes or that I need to add anything? No? Okay, so are we all in favor that I can approve the minutes? Say aye.
Aye. Yeah.
Well, then you can't vote, but we got one. Yeah, we got it. So on the meeting, on the minutes, and then if there's nothing further, then we'll adjourn. So thank you everybody for coming, and if there's anything you need to ask me, please do in between. See you next month. That is let me see, that's August.
No, it's not doing anything wrong.
Bye guys.
Bye.
This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.